They never liked me. From the very first day I walked into the sterile glass and chrome lobby of Ethelgard Solutions, I felt it. The subtle chill in the air, the polite smiles that didn't reach the eyes, the way conversations hushed just slightly when I approached the cluster of desks in the open plan office. My name is Alara Vance, and for 7 years I was the ghost in the machine, the quiet, efficient cog they all wished would simply rust away. My desk was in the corner, the one furthest from the windows with the panoramic views of the city. It was positioned, I always thought, as a physical manifestation of my place here, necessary for structural integrity, but best kept out of sight. I was a senior data analyst in the Strategic Insights Division, a title that sounded impressive, but in the ecosystem of our department translated to the person who did the tedious, complex groundwork so others could present the shiny conclusions. My colleagues were a curated set. There was Marcus, the golden boy with the perfectly knotted ties and a laugh that was just a decibel too loud, who took credit for my predictive models as if they were his own intuitive strokes of genius. Chloe, with her razor-sharp manicures and even sharper tongue, who would accidentally schedule crucial client meetings for me at the same time, forcing me to choose which fire to put out. And David, the perpetually harried middle manager, their ringleader, who distributed the most soul-crushing, deadline-impossible projects to my queue with a sigh and a, "I know you can handle this, Alara. You're our rock." I was their rock, the one they could pile all their garbage onto, expecting it to hold, never wondering if it might crack. And for 7 years, I held. I didn't crack. I just grew harder, colder, and infinitely more patient. Their games were petty, but constant. A corrupted file sent to me minutes before a presentation. Lost emails containing vital information. Being left off the invite for team lunches that turned into informal strategy sessions. The whispered jokes in the kitchenette about my antisocial nature. My preference for eating at my desk with headphones on. A necessary barrier against their noise. They mistook my silence for weakness. My diligence for lack of ambition. My refusal to engage in their gossip-fueled politics for simple dullness. What they never saw, what no one in the entire company saw, was the parallel track I was on. While I was untangling the data snafus they created, delivering flawless reports on impossible deadlines, and quietly fixing their errors before they reached the directors, I was also being watched. Not by them, but from far above. It started 3 years ago, a summons to the 40th floor, to the serene, book-lined office of Evelyn Shaw, the company's COO, and a legend whose career I had studied with academic fervor. She hadn't called me in to discuss a project. She'd called me in to see me, to talk. She asked sharp, probing questions about systemic inefficiencies in our division, about data flow, about client retention pitfalls. I answered honestly, analytically, backing every observation with the cold, hard data I lived in. I didn't mention Marcus or Chloe or David by name. I didn't need to. The patterns I described implicated them clearly. Evelyn Shaw had nodded, a faint, unreadable smile on her lips. "Thank you, Alara. You have a unique perspective from the trenches. Keep up the excellent work. And this conversation stays between us." That was the beginning. There were other, rarer meetings, always discreet. A coffee in the private executive dining room, a walk and talk in the rooftop garden, inaccessible to most employees. She became my mentor and my strategist. She saw the sabotage for what it was, not just a personal hell for me, but a massive bleeding wound on the department's productivity and morale, a wound inflicted by the very people meant to lead it. "We could intervene now," she said once, watching the city lights blink on below us, but it would be a slap on the wrist. They'd close ranks, become more covert. The culture would remain toxic. Sometimes, Alara, to excise a tumor cleanly, you must let it grow just a little more, until its boundaries are unmistakably clear. So I endured, with a new secret purpose. Every slight, every sabotaged project, every stolen idea became a data point in a private ledger. I documented everything, not with emotion, but with the cold precision of my trade. Dates, times, email trails, comparative performance metrics. I became a master of my own domain, not just in data analysis, but in navigating their minefield. I created backups of backups. I sent myself calendar invites for their secret meetings, having long ago guessed the password to the team's shared calendar. I learned to present my findings in such an airtight manner that any attempt by Marcus to claim them would immediately unravel under scrutiny. The work was my armor and my weapon. My performance metrics were consistently the highest in the division, my error rate non-existent, my client feedback glowing when I was actually allowed to interact with clients directly. I was building an unassailable fortress of competence, brick by tedious brick, while they danced in their castle of sand, unaware the tide was being orchestrated to come in. The final 6 months were the hardest. The promotion for David's job, Department Head of Strategic Insights, was being whispered about. He was the obvious choice, or so everyone thought. The atmosphere grew more charged. Their attempts to undermine me became more desperate, less subtle. Chloe planted a rumor that I was interviewing elsewhere, hoping to make me seem disloyal. Marcus forgot to include a critical data set in my materials for the quarterly board report, a report I was somehow, suddenly, tasked with compiling solo. I worked for 72 hours straight. I reconstructed the missing data from secondary sources, cross-referenced 1,000 points. I delivered the report, comprehensive and insightful, an hour early. David's face when he realized his attempt to sink me had only made me shine brighter was a fleeting masterpiece of suppressed fury. The day the all-company email arrived, I was at my corner desk, debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code. The familiar ping sounded across the office. I saw people glance at their screens, then do double takes. A wave of murmurs swept through the open space. I opened the email. From Evelyn Shaw, COO. To all staff, Ethelgard Solutions. Subject, Leadership Announcement, Strategic Insights Division. It is with great pleasure that I announce the appointment of Alara Vance as the new head of the Strategic Insights Division, effective immediately. Alara's 7 years of exemplary service, her unparalleled analytical rigor, and her deep understanding of our data ecosystems make her the ideal leader to guide this critical department into its next chapter. Please join me in congratulating Alara on this well-deserved promotion. Silence. A profound, ringing silence fell over our corner of the floor. Then, the sound of Chloe's chair scraping back. I looked up, slowly. Every face was turned toward me. Marcus had gone pale. David looked like he'd been physically struck, his mouth slightly agape. Chloe's expression was a frozen mask of disbelief and dawning horror. The rest of the team, the junior analysts, the admins, the ones who had mostly just followed the lead of the loudest voices, stared with wide, uncertain eyes. I saved my work, closed my laptop with a soft click, and stood up. The movement felt seismic in the quiet room. I picked up my single modest plant, a resilient snake plant that had thrived in my dim corner, and my favorite pen. That was all I needed from the desk. I walked, not to David's old office, but past it, to the larger corner office that had been vacant since the previous director retired. It had been cleaned and prepared. I knew because I had overseen the request myself, through back channels, a week ago. The keycard in my pocket buzzed against the reader, and the door unlocked with a solid thunk. I entered, placed my plant on the broad, empty desk by the window, and finally let out a breath I felt I'd been holding for 7 years. The view was spectacular. I stood there for a long moment, watching the clouds drift over the city I had helped this company understand. My first official act was to send a meeting invite to the entire Strategic Insights team. Subject, departmental restructuring, new protocols. Time, 9 a.m. tomorrow, mandatory attendance. I spent the rest of the day in silence, planning. The revenge wasn't going to be fiery or dramatic. It was going to be administrative. It was going to be structural. It was going to be irrevocable. At 8:55 a.m. the next day, I entered the main conference room. I had chosen my attire with care, a tailored steel gray suit, my hair pulled back in a severe but elegant knot. I looked every inch the executive. I carried no notes, only a tablet. The team was already there, seated around the long table. The air was thick with tension. David, Marcus, and Chloe sat together, a little island of grim solidarity. The others were scattered, avoiding eye contact. "Good morning," I said, my voice calm, clear, and carrying. It was the same voice I used in presentations, but now it held a new, unquestionable authority. "Thank you for being on time. We have a great deal to cover." I didn't smile. I didn't make small talk. I tapped my tablet and the presentation screen lit up. Slide 1, Revised Organizational Chart. A new, streamlined structure appeared. David's old title was gone, absorbed into my role. Marcus's and Chloe's positions were still there, but now they reported to me through a new layer. 2 team lead positions, filled by names from the junior pool, conscientious, talented individuals they had always overlooked. I saw the blood drain from Marcus's face. Chloe's knuckles were white where she gripped her pen. "These changes are effective immediately," I continued. "The new leads, Sarah and Ben, will be meeting with each of you individually this afternoon to reassign current projects and establish new workflow protocols." "Alara," David began, his voice strained. "Mr. Pritchard," I interrupted, not looking at him. "You will have the opportunity to speak during the Q&A. Please hold your questions." The use of his surname was a deliberate ice pick. He flinched. I moved to the next slide. Slide 2. New transparency and accountability measures. I outlined a new system. All project assignments, deadlines, and edits would now be logged in a new, transparent software suite. Every piece of work would have a digital fingerprint showing who contributed what and when. Credit would be algorithmically assigned based on contribution metrics. The era of vague, collective gonglao and stolen ideas was over. "This system," I said, finally letting my gaze rest on Marcus, "will ensure that excellence is recognized and collaboration is genuine, not just nominal." His jaw tightened. Slide 3, Performance Review Overhaul. I announced that, given the department's new direction, all current performance evaluations were void. A new 90-day assessment period would begin today. Metrics would be based on the new transparency system, peer feedback, now submitted anonymously to a third-party HR portal, and adherence to revised core values, which I then displayed: integrity, collaboration, accountability, excellence, asterisk. "The previous culture of informal feedback and subjective evaluation has ended," I stated. "Your performance, and thus your future with this department, will be based on clear, objective data. You will be judged on what you do, not who you know." The room was utterly silent. You could hear the hum of the projector. Slide 4, Immediate Operational Changes. This was the knife, twisted slowly. All client-facing communications, including presentations and reports, will now require my final sign-off before delivery. Chloe, our star presenter, stiffened. Furthermore, to ensure deep analytical rigor, the senior analyst role, I looked at Marcus, will be refocused on foundational data integrity and model validation. The flashy front-end presentation of insights will be handled by a newly formed client strategy unit, reporting separately. I had just taken away the very things they lived for: David's unearned authority, Marcus's stage, Chloe's direct client access. "Finally," I said, switching off the screen, "my door is open, but by appointment only. Requests for meetings must be submitted via the new system with a clear agenda. I do not have time for gossip, office politics, or discussions that do not directly pertain to improving our work and serving our clients. This department has been underperforming its potential for years. That ends now. We will become the most efficient, respected, and data-driven division in this company. Those who are aligned with that goal will thrive here. Those who are not—" I let the sentence hang, my eyes sweeping the room, finally landing on the trio. "Will find the next 90 days very challenging." I stood up straight. "Sarah and Ben, please see me in my office in 10 minutes to receive your first briefs. The rest of you, your new project assignments are already in your inboxes. You may begin." I turned and walked out, leaving behind a room in stunned, icy silence. The revenge was not in shouting or firing them on the spot. That would have been a mercy, a quick death. My revenge was in forcing them to stay, to live in the new world they had helped create through their own pettiness, to have to come to me daily for approval, to see the people they'd stepped on rise above them, to be measured by the very metrics of hard work and integrity they had spent years avoiding. In the weeks that followed, I was scrupulously, impeccably fair. I gave no unreasonable deadlines. I offered no personal insults. I simply enforced the new rules with robotic precision. When Marcus submitted a model with sloppy code, I sent it back with a list of specific errors and a demand for a full validation report. When Chloe tried to bypass the new system to send a quick update to a client, I copied the client and her, thanking her for the draft and noting that the finalized, approved version would follow shortly, publicly highlighting her breach of protocol. When David requested a meeting with a vague agenda titled Catch-up, I declined it, asking him to resubmit with clear objectives. They floundered. Used to manipulating systems and people, they had no tools to navigate a landscape of pure, unyielding process. Their performance, when stripped of the ability to steal credit and shift blame, was revealed as mediocre at best. I, on the other hand, thrived. With the roadblocks removed, the department's output improved dramatically. The junior staff, now empowered and recognized, blossomed. Morale, for everyone except the old guard, soared. Evelyn Shaw sent me a one-word email: elegant. The reckoning reached its climax at the end of the 90-day review period. I called each of them into my office, one by one. David Pritchard sat across from me, a shell of his former blustery self. "Your performance metrics are the lowest in the department," I said, showing him the data. "Your leadership in the previous structure masked a fundamental lack of strategic vision and analytical skill. Your role has been made redundant by the new organizational flow. HR is offering you a severance package. I suggest you take it." He left without a word, his shoulders slumped. Marcus Thorne tried defiance. "This is a farce, Alada. You're destroying this team out of spite." I pulled up side-by-side comparisons. His code, full of errors and inefficiencies, next to clean, optimized versions produced by the junior staff under the new leads. I showed him the contribution logs for his last 3 projects, his input minimal, his credit claims maximal. "The data is not spiteful, Marcus. It is factual. You have a choice. Accept a demotion to a junior analyst position and undergo mandatory retraining, or be terminated for cause, based on demonstrable underperformance and historical misrepresentation of your work." The fight left his eyes. He took the demotion. He couldn't afford not to. Chloe Renfrew was last. She was crying, angry, beautiful tears. "We were friends, Alada. We were a team." "We were never friends, Chloe," I said, my voice quiet, "and we were only a team when it benefited you. Your strength is in presentation, not in substance. Your new role will be in the marketing department's design pool, creating templates and visuals. You will no longer have any direct contact with clients or analytical data. It is a lateral move, but it is the only one available to you here." She stared at me, hatred and humiliation warring in her gaze. She accepted. She, too, had no other viable option. When it was done, I leaned back in my chair. The office was quiet. The poison had been drained. The department was now staffed with people who valued competence over click, work over words. There was no triumphant fanfare, no visceral thrill of victory. Instead, there was a profound and quiet satisfaction, like the final click of a well-engineered lock. I had not just survived them. I had used their every attempt to break me as the whetstone to sharpen myself into the instrument of their obsolescence. I looked out at my view, at the city humming with data and life, and allowed myself a small, private smile. The ghost in the machine was now its architect. And the system, finally, was running perfectly.